Man, it's been a long time since I've posted something, but here we go again. So, the world is big. There's people from all walks of life, but we've never been as connected as we ever have been in the last, I want to say, 20 years. Only recently, only recently have we been able to genuinely connect with other people across the globe at the tip of our fingertip. As much as I don't like Facebook, we definitely got to thank Facebook for doing most of the legwork to connect us to everyone. Um, and Instagram, and I guess recently TikTok, if you want to add that. I don't have TikTok. I think it's stupid, but um, I saw this meme where this guy raises his hands and is like, "Don't shoot. I'm retarded." And then the enemy's like, "Prove it." And then it says, "Israel has a right to defend itself." So there's people who are pro Palestine and people who are pro Israel. Um, I'm gonna be very blunt. I don't care about either side, and I think both of them could disappear and the world wouldn't even know. That's just my opinion. However, even though we are not physically in that war, we are here scrolling through TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all other platforms giving our opinion, our 2 cents on something that we have no skin in the war in. But I decided to comment and say I never knew that we didn't have a right to defend ourselves. I am unapologetically pro defending yourself. From a single person to your whole entire country or whatever you want to defend, whatever you want to devote your time to, I believe everyone has a right to defend themselves. And then some random guy named Muhammad chimed in, as I knew someone would eventually, and says something about it's unfair that Israel could defend itself in a country that doesn't belong to them. So sarcastically, I'm like, oh, just like America, Egypt, Mexico, Spain, all those other countries that were invaded at some point in history, and now it's just the norm to accept that they've been invaded, because people forget that history is made by the people who win. So, for those that don't know history, Egypt wasn't always Egypt, or Egypt was Egypt until, you know, until Islam came and took over. And, America wasn't America. It belonged to the Native Americans, obviously. Then America took land from Mexico. I mean, we are all, whether we want to admit it or not, the truth and reality of things is that we are all invaders. Because I'll tell you this right now, you're not going to just pack up your stuff and give it to a Native American, are you? No, you're too comfortable. You are enjoying the spoils of war. And my kids, my grandkids, my great grandkids will continue doing the same long after I'm gone. And that's just the truth. And me and this Muhammad guy, we keep going back and forth about what's right and wrong. And, he's like, yeah, well, you could just support Israel. And I told him, I was like, I don't support Israel. I don't support Palestine. I don't support Ukraine. I don't support Russia. I don't like war. I don't like conflict at all. And if I'm being honest, I think human life is precious. But digressing, so we keep going into this back and forth, and he's like, oh, you don't know about geopolitical science and all that stuff. And I told the kid, I was like that really doesn't matter, because you're going on about how people can't defend themselves, and that their country belongs to someone, but you refuse to speak on the fact that somewhere along your bloodline they've contributed to conquering other nations and imposing their religious beliefs on other people. So I told the guy, I was like, if Palestine is so great, how come other countries are not accepting the Palestinians as refugees? I forgot the whole entire conversation. Like, I can't do it verbatim, but he mentioned something about the U.S. and I said, oh yeah, so I told him, like, there's a lot of people who flee their countries and go to different places because they feel that wherever they are, they feel oppressed. And that's fine. People in America, if they feel oppressed, they go to Canada. It's the next best thing. it's close. We don't have to pack up our bags and travel across the map somewhere else. So, I told them that, you know, you're complaining about the people in Israel that they're taking over or making laws or taking land, but you don't want to speak to the fact that like 80 to 90% of Europe are pretty much infested by your kind. As racist as that sounds, it is the truth. Because 20 to 30 years ago, England was great. Not anymore. France was great. Not anymore. Germany, Sweden, Holland, Norway, Finland, all the aesthetically pleasing to the eye countries are now, in a sense, been invaded. That's what I call it. I'm going to stick by that. I ain't changing my opinion. So then he goes on, he's like, well, how come, America's not like that? Because there are Muslim people that aren't trying to take over America. And I told him, I was like, well, the reason why that America is not as bad as it is in Europe is because Americans don't play that. Some do, because politically we are divided. We are accepting, but we be damned if you try to do the same BS that you did in Europe in America. So I told him, I was like, we have the Second Amendment. That's in the world, globally the world knows that Americans are well armed. So all the protest and looting and rioting will not happen in the US. If it does happen, it's because we are destroying our own country, not because someone on the outside is destroying our country. I continue to educate the guy, and I told him, I was like, well, if other countries was like America, for example, there might be, less wars. So Muhammad tells me that is false, and I was like, well, if you think that is false, how come America doesn't have the same laws and policies as England and Australia? Those guys are stripped away from their Second Amendment, and now their government gets to do whatever they want. COVID-19 is a prime example on rights being trampled. Yes, it was attempted here in America, but after a month or two, people say F the restrictions and they're going to freedom the F on. I also told them, like, you know, if Russia had the Second Amendment, do you think there will be a war in Ukraine? If North Korea had the Second Amendment and China had their Second Amendment, do you think there will be conflict going on in this world right now? It's not the government, it's not the people that want the conflict. It's the government that wants the conflict. The people in Russia, you know, they're innocent. They don't want war because they're conscripted. They have to, they're conscripted and they get drafted. So they have no right. They have no say. If they had the Second Amendment, that would have been shut down altogether. With China, you know, life, again, this is the second time I'm saying this, life is precious. To an extent, it's precious. Um, but with China, they have a one-child policy. If you have a second child, they take away your money. They legit destroy your home. If they had a Second Amendment, do you think the Chinese government, the CCP, would be trampling all over their rights? No. North Korea, same thing. You know, this fat pudgy dude is being worshipped as a god. The people of North Korea, they are drafted, then they're sent to fight someone else's war in Ukraine, and then they leave. They flee, they defect. They don't want to fight. They worship this guy out of fear. If they had a Second Amendment, do you honestly think that North Korea will be on the same BS as they are today? Absolutely not. Eventually, Muhammad came around and he started to see where I was going with this. And then some other random dude named Ryan, he sounds like a Kyle, but Ryan, he comes by and he chimes in and he's like, you can't defend yourself against your own country. And me being me, I'm like, yes, you can. Because you could defend yourself against your own government. No matter what country you live in, what town, city, county, village, wherever you live in, the government does not have your best interest at heart. Therefore, you should always prepare yourself to defend yourself against them. Because if you give them the inch, they will take a mile, and they'll be more than happy to trample on any right that you hold dear. So, the good thing about this thing that we call globalization is that we can always learn from one another. And I'm going to stand by this 10,001%, infinity times two and beyond, that the people versus the government are two different entities. And um I think I think we all love each other if the government stops getting in our ears and convincing us to hate other people that we don't know. And with globalization, we're able to learn from one another. Especially if you don't travel a lot. Lucky for me, I was, you know, well, it was thanks to the Navy, but you know, still, I was able to travel and see, both sides of the coin. Oh snap! Before I continue, I forgot. When I was having this conversation with Muhammad, I told him like, you know, um, America's Second Amendment is like a double-edged sword. Because people are well protected, um, but that means that the government will try its best to take away its rights because if people are well armed, the government, the American government, would have to keep itself in check. I told them, like, if you go to a bar or a restaurant and everyone is aware that everyone has a means to defend themselves, do you think someone is going to go out of their way and cause trouble? No, they won't, because everyone's well defended, you know. And then he goes on like, "Oh, what about your school shootings?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's sad. Unfortunately, it happens, but those kids aren't defended, and those teachers can't defend them. But just imagine if those kids and the teachers were defended. Do you think there'd be school shootings? Kind of like Harry Potter. Everyone has a wand. That wand could kill someone, right? How come there hasn't been a a spell a spell shooting at Hogwarts? It's because everyone has a wand and they know how to use it. Um, no, but seriously though, it's good to learn from other people. Where they've been and what they've been through. We'll never understand. We will never understand. However, we can always try to relate to someone. There's pros and cons to Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, the internet in general. There's definitely pros and cons to it. More cons than pro. I hate to admit that. Anyways, let me get off. I gotta finish watching Polar Express. I don't care what anyone says. Santa is real. I just been too naughty to be on the nice list.